Day 17 and you're back. How did you get on yesterday with the deep dive into your protagonist's past? Did you learn anything? I hope you were in the comments, leaving comments either in the community or on the blog post, and hopefully I've had a chance to look at them and comment myself. Today we're sticking with the protagonist. So again, if you aren't a novel writer, if you're just writing short stories, pick a character from your stories, from a story you want to write, or from somebody else's stories, and use them to inform this exercise today. If you are a novel writer, this is going to look at your character. We've looked back into your protagonist's past. Now we're going to look at the moment kind of just before your story starts. One of the problems with writing novels and short stories, to be honest, is that quite often we front load the story with a lot of backstory, a lot of throat clearing, a lot of explanation of things that we think the reader needs to know, and they don't really necessarily need to know it yet, but we need to know it. So today's exercise is to have you write that stuff out with the framework of your novel or of your short story and write it as a separate exercise, as a separate story. So fire up a new file, grab a new sheet of paper, load up a new recording on your device, and today you're going to write the story that comes right before the inciting incident of your novel, or right before the main incident that shapes your short story. Your short story is usually about one moment in somebody's life. Today you're going to write a story that's set in the moment before that moment. I'm going to suggest that you either write it as a series of journal entries, which makes sense to me because I write journals for myself all the time to try and figure out what I'm thinking. It also relieves you of the pressure of having to have a real plot or driving action. And short stories can often get away with having very little in the way of plot. And these journal entries could be part of that. And as long as they take us through a whole series of emotions that the character is going through, and we get a sense that there's some kind of movement, it can make for a very rewarding read. If you are a novelist, this can be a wonderful thing to turn around when you're promoting the novel, and this can be like a little extra for people who join your mailing list, or it can simply be something that informs you more about your character and allows you to add a sentence here and a sentence there that just layers in information about your protagonist. It also might allow you to chop off a whole bunch of words at the beginning of your novel that were slowing people from getting involved. So if you've heard any of those kind of commitments that things are going a bit slowly at the beginning of your novel and they want to get to the action faster, this can be an exercise in taking the information that you know needs to be in the novel and putting it in a file somewhere that you can draw on without actually writing those scenes for the readers. So journals are one way to do it. You could also write the story of the days leading up to the inciting incident with more of the backstory that you want to know and that readers might want to know after they've read the book. And again, if you're a short story writer, write the days before the story happened, or journals leading up to it, or the moment that the character realizes that things are changing, or have them blissfully ignorant of the change that's about to come, which can be really poignant for somebody to read after they know what your character is going to face and all the hell you're going to put them through, which we do because we have to give them conflict and we have to make their lives miserable. So that is your prompt for today: journal entry or a story set in the moment before the interesting stuff starts happening in your novel or your previous story. Not to say that your story isn't interesting too, but it has less of an no point of no return feeling about it. So something's going to happen in your story, obviously, or it can be emotional, it can be set up. The purpose of this exercise is to deepen your understanding of your character and to get something written and to move you forward in your journey. So write your story about your protagonist, come on over to storyaday.org, comment in the blog comments, comment in the community. If you have a chance, read some other people's stories and let them know how you're doing. Start thinking about what story you might want to nominate for Storyfest in June of your own, or somebody else's. If you've read other people's stories, start gathering those too, because I do ask if you submit a story of your own for Storyfest, and then if you can recommend one by somebody else that you've read during the challenge, and it helps us spread the love. So start thinking about that. It may be that you haven't written that story yet and that somebody else hasn't written that story yet, but I encourage you to start thinking about that. But first of all, write your own story about your protagonist, leave a comment, do your victory dance, and I will see you back here tomorrow.